If you're driving yourself crazy, trying to figure out if he's actually flirting with you, or if he's just being his naturally charming self with literally everyone, trust me, it's not just in your head. That is the ultimate struggle of decoding Libra men, because their default setting is so ridiculously friendly that it always feels like mixed signals. Stick around, because I'm going to expose the exact subtle body language and secret cues they use when they secretly want you, so you never have to risk the embarrassment of asking them directly. So, before you start overanalyzing every single text he sends, we need to talk about their infamous flirting style. You have to realize that dealing with a Venus-ruled guy is basically like trying to read a professional diplomat who is also incredibly hot. Imagine walking into a party where one guy is effortlessly making the bartender laugh, complimenting your best friend's outfit, and then making intense eye contact with you. It is ridiculously easy to assume you are the main character in his rom-com, only to watch him give that exact same energy to the pizza delivery guy. This is the ultimate Libra trap. They do not flirt to get something out of you. They flirt because making people feel good is their baseline aesthetic. Being charming is literally as natural to them as breathing, which is exactly why their everyday politeness looks like heavy flirting to the rest of the Zodiac. To understand this, you have to look at the psychology behind their planetary ruler. Venus is all about harmony, beauty, and keeping the peace at all costs. Because they are deeply wired to avoid conflict and awkwardness, a Libra man will rarely just walk up and tell you he is into you. Rejection is basically their worst nightmare, so they create a safe buffer of universal friendliness to protect their fragile egos. If he is just being nice, he can easily laugh off any weird tension without ruining the vibe. Instead of making a bold, aggressive move, he will strategically place himself in your orbit and wait for you to do the heavy lifting. He wants to test the waters with subtle banter and see if you reciprocate before he ever puts his heart on the line. This means their actual flirting style is rarely physical or overly forward in the beginning. They are air signs, so the way to their heart is entirely through their brain. He will suddenly find incredibly specific, highly logical reasons just to debate with you about some random indie movie or a niche podcast you mentioned once. That intellectual sparring is his way of feeling out the chemistry without actually risking a direct romantic rejection. He is gathering data, analyzing your reactions, and trying to see if your mental wavelength matches his carefully curated vibe. But what happens when that intellectual curiosity shifts from casual banter into genuine, undeniable attraction? There is a massive, hidden difference between how they treat someone they find mentally stimulating and how they act when they are actually falling for you, which brings us to the real signs of romantic interest. So, if their baseline is being charming to everyone, how do you actually know when Libra men are officially crushing on you? The shift from friendly banter to genuine romantic interest is incredibly subtle, but it completely changes the way they operate around you. Think of it like a spotlight at a massive concert. When they are just being social, that light is bouncing all over the room, hitting everyone with the same warm, diffuse glow. But when they actually want you, that spotlight stops roaming and focuses entirely on your connection, making you feel like the only person in the room. Suddenly, they remember that offhand comment you made 3 weeks ago about your favorite obscure snack, and they magically show up with it. You will notice them ditching their usual butterfly socialite routine just to sit quietly in a corner with you for hours. The psychology behind this dramatic shift is rooted in their deep need for true partnership and balance. Libra men are represented by the scales, meaning they spend most of their lives desperately trying to weigh their options and keep things perfectly even. When romantic interest kicks in, that internal scale finally tips heavily in one direction, and they start prioritizing your comfort over their universal need to please everyone else. They will go out of their way to solve your problems, acting as your personal mediator or sounding board, because acts of service are their secret love language. However, because they are still terrified of direct rejection, this devotion is usually disguised as them just being exceptionally helpful and reliable friends. They are silently building a foundation of undeniable trust and dependency, hoping you will naturally realize how perfectly you fit into their lives. It is a highly calculated game of emotional chess where they want to win you over without ever having to make an aggressive opening move. This means you have to pay attention to where they are investing their most valuable asset, which is their time. Friendly Libra men will casually invite you to a group hangout, but love-struck ones will engineer highly specific, one-on-one situations that feel suspiciously like dates. They will suddenly become your biggest cheerleaders, validating your feelings and constantly checking in to make sure your emotional state is perfectly balanced. Behind that cool, rational air sign exterior, they are constantly adjusting their own behavior to match your energy and make you feel completely understood. They practically morph into your perfect counterparts, emotionally mirroring your thoughts and validating your exact worldview. But sometimes, no matter how much they try to play it cool with their words, their physical presence completely betrays their hidden feelings. If you really want to catch them in the act, you have to stop listening to what they say and start watching exactly what their bodies do when you walk into the room. Even when they are desperately trying to play it cool with their words, the absolute biggest giveaway that Libra men are into lies entirely in their unconscious physical reactions. If you remember the promise from the beginning of this video, it is time to finally expose those secret physical cues that save you from ever having to ask them directly. Think of their body language like a highly calibrated magnetic field that is helplessly drawn toward whatever it finds most attractive in the room. When you are sitting in a crowded space, you might notice that their shoulders, knees, or feet are perfectly pointed in your direction, regardless of who is actually speaking to them. They have this undeniable habit of leaning in incredibly close when you talk, creating a sudden magnetic bubble of intimacy that completely shuts out the rest of the world. You will also catch them staring at you from across the party, but the second you make eye contact, they will immediately look away with a shy, almost flustered smile. This creates this intense, silent tension, where they are physically trying to establish an instant connection without saying a single romantic word out loud. The psychological reason their bodies betray them so easily is because their ruling planet, Venus, literally governs the physical senses and aesthetic harmony. Libra men naturally crave physical proximity to the people they find deeply attractive, so their subconscious mind completely overrides their cautious, logical brain. Because they are so terrified of verbal rejection, they use these micro-expressions and proximity tactics to silently test your boundaries and gauge your comfort level. One of their biggest subconscious tells is subtly mirroring your body language, copying your posture, or matching your exact gestures to build a sense of unspoken alignment. By physically syncing up with you, they are psychologically trying to prove that you two are already on the exact same wavelength. It is their nonverbal way of demonstrating that they are a safe, compatible partner who completely understands you on a biological level. They are basically waiting for you to notice this undeniable physical chemistry and give them a green light to finally make a real, confident move. This subtle physical synchronization is exactly why interactions with them often feel so incredibly comfortable and familiar right off the bat. You might notice them accidentally brushing your arm, playfully nudging your shoulder, or finding completely harmless excuses to initiate light, lingering physical contact. Every single one of these micro-touches is a highly calculated risk, deliberately designed to see if you pull away or naturally lean into their affectionate energy. If you actively reciprocate that warm body language, it gives them the exact validation they desperately need to drop the friendly act and start pursuing you for real. But even if you perfectly master all these physical signs, there is still one massive piece of the astrological puzzle that dictates exactly how they express their love. You literally cannot truly decode his romantic intentions without looking at the specific planetary placement that actually controls his heart. So let's shift gears and talk about why knowing his sun sign is barely scratching the surface if you do not understand the hidden power of his Venus sign. To truly decode everything we just talked about, you have to realize that knowing he is a Libra is only giving you half of the actual story. While his sun sign dictates his core personality and ego, his Venus sign is the absolute master key that unlocks exactly how he experiences and expresses romantic love. Think of his Libra sun as the sleek, gorgeous exterior of a sports car that easily catches everyone's attention on the street. But his Venus sign is the actual engine under the hood that determines how fast he moves, how he handles sharp turns, and what kind of fuel he needs to keep going. You might be dealing with a guy who has all that classic charming air sign energy on the outside, but operates with intense brooding Scorpio passion behind closed doors. Alternatively, he might have his Venus in Virgo, meaning all that smooth talking completely disappears and is replaced by him silently organizing your entire life as a massive act of devotion. If you only look at his surface-level aesthetic, you are going to misread every single one of his deepest romantic gestures. The astrological psychology behind this is fascinating, because Venus is actually the ruling planet of Libra itself. This means that for Libra men, the placement of Venus in their specific birth chart holds an extremely heavy, amplified influence over their entire romantic existence. Because they are already naturally obsessed with balance and partnership, their Venus sign dictates exactly what kind of dynamic makes them feel most secure and validated in a connection. It is the subconscious blueprint that tells them what traits are deeply attractive and what red flags will make them instantly pull away without a single word. If his Venus is in a fire sign like Leo, he suddenly needs massive cinematic displays of affection and endless praise to feel truly valued by you. But if that same planet sits in an earth sign, he strips away all the dramatic romance and strictly looks for unbreakable loyalty, stability, and tangible proof that you are a reliable partner. Understanding this specific placement is basically like reading his secret diary, revealing the exact emotional language he desperately needs you to speak. When you finally align with his Venus sign, you stop guessing and start speaking directly to his heart, completely bypassing his logical, overthinking brain. You will suddenly understand why he acts super detached when he is stressed, or why he desperately needs you to initiate the first move even though he is wildly attracted to you. It gives you the ultimate psychological advantage, allowing you to match his unique romantic frequency and create a bond that feels practically unbreakable. Instead of getting frustrated by his mixed signals, you can confidently navigate his emotional landscape and show up exactly as the partner he has been secretly manifesting. However, even with the perfect Venus alignment, you still have to survive the chaotic reality of how they operate in the day-to-day talking stage. Loving them in theory is beautiful, but actually, surviving a relationship with this highly intellectual, deeply indecisive element requires a completely different set of emotional survival skills. So, if you want to know how to keep his attention without losing your own sanity, we have to expose the absolute truth about what it actually takes to date an air sign. So, now that you know how their minds and bodies actually operate, you have to mentally prepare yourself for the wild ride of dating an air sign. Surviving the talking stage with Libra men requires you to completely throw away everything you thought you knew about traditional, predictable romance. Trying to lock down their commitment is honestly like trying to catch the wind in a jar. The harder you try to trap it, the faster it slips right through your fingers. One day, they are messaging you nonstop with deep philosophical questions, making you feel like you are the absolute center of their universe. Then, out of nowhere, they might suddenly vanish into their own head for 3 days, leaving you staring at the ceiling and wondering if you did something wrong. They are incredibly social creatures who crave constant mental stimulation, meaning they will easily get bored if the connection becomes too routine or emotionally heavy too quickly. If you try to force them into a neat, restrictive little box, they will instantly feel suffocated and quietly drift away without any dramatic explanation. The root cause of this chaotic dating dynamic comes down to how air signs inherently process their deep-seated emotions and fears. Libra men live almost entirely inside their own heads, meaning they analyze their feelings logically instead of just letting themselves experience the emotion naturally. When things start getting seriously intimate, their famous indecisiveness kicks into maximum overdrive because they are terrified of making the wrong choice and disrupting their inner peace. They will obsessively weigh every single pro and con of committing to you, creating an exhausting internal debate that completely paralyzes their ability to take action. Their sudden distance is rarely about them losing interest. It is actually a psychological defense mechanism they use to regain their balance when they feel overwhelmed by intense feelings. They desperately need a partner who understands that their need for space is not a personal rejection, but a crucial part of their mental processing cycle. To successfully date them, you have to become the calm anchor in their storm, providing a safe, pressure-free zone where they can figure out their own messy thoughts. This means the absolute best strategy you can use is to match their breezy energy and focus heavily on building a rock-solid, intellectual friendship first. You have to keep the banter sharp, give them plenty of room to breathe, and never make them feel like they are being aggressively interrogated about their future plans. When they finally realize that you are not trying to trap them or rush their decision, their relationship anxiety completely melts away. They will slowly start to drop their intellectual armor, allowing that deeply romantic, loyal Venus energy to finally take the wheel and guide the connection forward. It takes immense patience to navigate their airy unpredictability. But the ultimate reward is a beautiful, balanced partnership with someone who will constantly strive to make your life perfectly harmonious. But after everything we have just uncovered about their hidden signals, their planetary influences, and their complicated dating habits, where does that actually leave you right now? You might be sitting there wondering if the juice is actually worth the squeeze, and the final truth is going to completely shift your perspective on everything he has done so far. At the end of the day, the ultimate relief is realizing that Libra men aren't intentionally playing mind games with you. They are just deeply analytical romantics who want to make absolutely sure they are giving their heart to the right person. What is the most confusing mixed signal or subtle physical cue you have ever caught your Libra crush doing during the talking stage? If you want to dive even deeper into their psychology and learn exactly how to handle them, tap the video on your screen right now for my complete guide on dating this air sign.